UFC champion asked a black janitor to spar. For fun, he smiled. Only if you promise not to cry. The entire gym exploded with laughter before anyone had thrown a single punch. Phones shot into the air, cameras started recording, and dozens of voices echoed across the bright training floor as one of the world's most celebrated UFC champions pointed toward the quiet janitor mopping the edge of the mat. Everyone expected humiliation. Everyone expected an easy joke. But when the janitor slowly rested his mop against the wall, wiped his hands on his worn work overalls, and smiled with calm confidence before quietly saying, "Only if you promise not to cry," the laughter suddenly changed. Nobody understood why those simple words sent a chill through the room. Within the next 10 minutes, every person watching would witness something they would remember for the rest of their lives. Before we begin this unforgettable story, if you believe kindness is stronger than pride, forgiveness is greater than revenge, and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel. Every act of support helps our community continue sharing stories that remind us what truly matters. The UFC training center buzzed with energy beneath the afternoon sunlight streaming through tall windows. Fighters skipped rope, coaches shouted instructions, heavy bags swung back and forth, and spectators gathered along the walls hoping to catch a glimpse of famous athletes preparing for upcoming championship bouts. At the center of attention stood Brock Mercer, a charismatic but increasingly arrogant UFC champion whose undefeated record had turned confidence into pride. Reporters loved him. Sponsors adored him. Fans filled arenas just to watch him compete. Yet those who spent time around him noticed something different lately. Success had quietly stolen his humility. Every weekday at precisely 8 in the morning, another man entered the building without anyone noticing. His name was Curtis Hale. He wore faded denim overalls stained with soap and years of honest work. His beard showed streaks of gray despite not being particularly old. Most people assumed he was just another maintenance worker hired to keep the expensive gym spotless. Few knew anything about his past because Curtis never volunteered stories. He simply smiled politely, greeted everyone, cleaned the floors, repaired broken equipment, emptied trash bins, and disappeared before sunset. The younger fighters barely acknowledged him. Some accidentally thanked him. Others walked directly across freshly cleaned mats without apology. Curtis never complained. He simply cleaned them again. Coach Everett, the oldest instructor in the building, often watched Curtis with curious eyes. Years earlier, he had noticed tiny details that didn't match an ordinary janitor. Curtis wrapped extension cords with perfect discipline. His posture remained balanced no matter how heavy the equipment he carried. His movements were smooth, controlled, almost effortless. Every now and then, while no one watched, he shadowboxed for only a few seconds before returning to work. Those movements carried remarkable precision. One afternoon, Coach Everett quietly asked if Curtis had ever trained. Curtis simply smiled. He answered that a long time ago he used to spend plenty of time inside gyms. Nothing more. The mystery remained. Weeks later, Brock Mercer arrived surrounded by cameras preparing for a promotional event. Sponsors wanted entertaining content for social media. His team encouraged playful challenges with ordinary people around the gym. As Brock walked across the freshly mopped floor, his expensive sneakers slipped slightly on the damp surface. Embarrassed in front of the cameras, he turned toward Curtis with irritation. The crowd laughed. Someone jokingly suggested Brock should fight the janitor. Another person shouted that it would be the easiest victory of Brock's career. Instead of ignoring the comments, Brock embraced them. His smile grew wider. He called Curtis over, pretending to offer him the chance of a lifetime. The cameras rolled. The audience gathered. Everyone anticipated harmless entertainment. Curtis leaned his mop against the wall, looked directly into Brock's eyes, and delivered the quiet sentence that instantly silenced dozens of laughing spectators. "Only if you promise not to cry." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Coach Everett's face immediately changed. He recognized something buried inside Curtis's calm expression. Something old. Something dangerous. Brock laughed harder than anyone. He assumed the janitor was making jokes. The crowd cheered for the spectacle. Gloves were found. A referee volunteered. The sparring session was scheduled for only 3 minutes. Just for fun. Just for laughs. Curtis slowly removed his work gloves. His rough hands revealed faded scars stretching across both knuckles. Old scars. Years old. Coach Everett quietly stepped closer. His heart suddenly raced. He remembered an article from decades earlier about a brilliant amateur fighter whose career ended overnight after sacrificing everything to care for family following a devastating accident. The article included one photograph. The face beneath the younger version of Curtis looked almost identical. Coach Everett whispered the forgotten name to himself. Everything suddenly made sense. Years before Brock Mercer had ever entered a gym, Curtis Hale had been considered one of the most naturally gifted fighters anyone had ever seen. Olympic scouts had watched him. Professional organizations pursued him. Experts predicted championship belts. Then tragedy struck. A drunk driver claimed the lives of Curtis's younger brother and left his father permanently disabled. Curtis abandoned competition immediately. He worked construction. Factories. Warehouses. Night shifts. Anything to pay hospital bills and raise his brother's 2 children as his own. His dream quietly disappeared. He never blamed anyone. He simply chose love over fame. Back inside the brightly lit gym, no one except Coach Everett knew the truth. The bell rang. Brock charged confidently. Curtis barely moved. He simply stepped aside. The champion stumbled. Laughter shifted. The second exchange came faster. Brock unleashed combinations powerful enough to finish elite professionals. Curtis slipped every punch with astonishing ease. His feet glided across the mat almost effortlessly. Not once did he throw a strike. The audience stopped laughing. Phones remained raised, but nobody spoke anymore. 30 seconds later, Brock attacked with increasing frustration. Curtis gently redirected him again. Every movement looked almost graceful. Not flashy. Not disrespectful. Just perfect. Coach Everett felt tears forming. He wasn't watching a janitor. He was watching a dream that had been buried beneath decades of sacrifice. After another missed attack, Brock finally paused. Sweat covered his forehead. Confusion replaced confidence. Curtis still hadn't thrown a single meaningful punch. The crowd realized something unbelievable. The champion couldn't touch the janitor. Then Curtis quietly decided the lesson had lasted long enough. He stepped forward. One smooth movement. A perfectly timed sweep. Brock landed flat on the mat before realizing what had happened. Gasps echoed throughout the building. Curtis immediately offered his hand instead of celebrating. Brock hesitated. His pride battled his embarrassment. Finally, he accepted the hand and stood. The cameras captured something far more powerful than anyone expected. There was no mockery in Curtis's face. Only kindness. Coach Everett stepped into the center of the mat and finally revealed the truth. He told everyone who Curtis really was. Silence filled the gym. Every fighter listened as Everett described the young champion who willingly surrendered worldwide fame to raise children who were not even his own. He explained how Curtis never complained. Never sought recognition. Never told his story because he believed sacrifices made for family were simply acts of love, not achievements deserving applause. Many people watching quietly lowered their phones. Several wiped away tears. Brock stood frozen. Everything he believed about greatness suddenly felt painfully small. He looked around the spotless gym. Every clean floor. Every repaired bench. Every polished mirror. Curtis had cared for the place every day without asking anyone to notice. Yet inside him lived a warrior who had once inspired legends. Brock removed the championship belt from around his waist. He carefully carried it toward Curtis. Without speaking, he placed it gently across the janitor's shoulder. The room erupted into applause unlike anything the gym had ever experienced. Curtis smiled awkwardly. He immediately tried returning the belt. He insisted it belonged to Brock. Coach Everett interrupted. He explained that championships measure victories inside cages, but character measures victories inside life. For several emotional seconds, nobody spoke. Even seasoned fighters struggled to hold back tears. That afternoon changed Brock forever. He canceled the promotional video. Instead, he asked Curtis if he would privately teach him once a week. Not fighting techniques. Life. Discipline. Humility. Patience. Curtis agreed under one condition. Every lesson would begin by cleaning the gym together. No cameras. No publicity. Just honest work. Brock accepted immediately. Over the following months, something extraordinary happened. The champion became the first athlete to arrive every morning. He swept floors. He cleaned windows. He repaired equipment beside Curtis. Young fighters entering the gym often assumed Brock had been assigned community service. Only later did they learn he volunteered. His interviews slowly changed too. Instead of boasting about victories, he spoke about gratitude. Instead of insulting opponents, he praised them. Fans noticed. His popularity somehow grew even larger. Not because he became louder. Because he became kinder. Curtis remained exactly the same. He continued wearing old overalls. He continued greeting everyone with gentle smiles. The only difference was that people now greeted him first. Young athletes asked for advice. Visitors thanked him. Children visiting the gym surrounded him with endless questions. He answered every one patiently. Years later, one of the children Curtis had raised graduated from medical school. Another became a firefighter. Both publicly credited the quiet man who had sacrificed his own future so theirs could exist. Neither cared that he had once been an extraordinary fighter. To them, he had always been something even greater. He had been home. One bright afternoon, Brock quietly asked Curtis whether he ever regretted giving up the career everyone believed would make him famous. Curtis looked across the sunlit gym where young athletes laughed together while families watched proudly from the sidelines. He smiled exactly the way he had smiled before stepping onto the mat that unforgettable day. Some dreams, he explained softly, are meant to change shape instead of coming true the way we imagined. Trophies eventually gather dust. Fame fades. Crowds leave. But people whose lives are changed by love carry that gift forever. Those words stayed with Brock longer than any championship victory. Before this story comes to an end, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think was the greatest act of strength in this story, winning a fight, choosing humility, or sacrificing a dream for the people you love? Leave your answer in the comments because your words may inspire someone else today. As the afternoon sunlight filled the gym one last time, Curtis picked up his familiar mop and quietly returned to work. There were no reporters surrounding him, no flashing cameras, and no roaring arenas. Yet everyone who witnessed that remarkable day understood that the strongest man in the building had never needed a championship belt to prove his greatness. His greatest victories had been earned through compassion, sacrifice, forgiveness, and the quiet courage to remain humble when life had every reason to make him bitter. Brock Mercer never forgot that lesson, and neither did anyone else who watched a simple janitor remind a world champion that true strength is measured not by how hard you can hit, but by how deeply you can love, how willingly you can forgive, and how faithfully you can serve others without expecting anything in return. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all remember that the greatest champions are often the ones the world never notices until kindness reveals the extraordinary heart hidden beneath ordinary clothes.